Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 3, the last episode in our mini-series to create a mole mash game for Android. Today we're going to be doing the clock for the application. And what that does is that is what is going to control the mole image moving around the screen. So looking at our App Inventor blocks, we can see we have this timer that moves the sprite randomly using two random integers, one for the x and one for the y coordinates. And if you notice here too, when we're actually calculating that value, we're doing width minus the sprite's width, because what happens is the upper left corner of the image sprite is the coordinate for that sprite. So if we don't subtract the width and the height, then what happens is the image sprite actually ends up off screen, because the point will be right here on the edge, but the actual image will be displayed off screen. So that's why we're doing that. So going into our Java code, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new subclass of clock, and we're going to call it game clock. It's going to be similar to how we created our game canvas. I'm going to go down here and create a new inner class, and I'm going to call it the game clock. And like I said, this extends clock. So don't forget to import your clock. And if you're using Eclipse, you can have it auto-generate some of the constructors and the method we're going to be overriding. So if I right-click here and I go to source, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my constructor. So I'm going to generate a constructor for my superclass. My superclass is clock. So, and I just want the bottom one. I want the one that has the component container in it. And I'm just going to click OK, and that gives us our constructor. So going back to the App Inventor blocks, you can see that the method we're going to be overriding is called timer. So in my game clock inner class, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to source again, but this time I'm going to override and implement methods. And this gives us all of the methods that we can override with our clock. And if you notice, there's this one, timer. This is what we're going to be using. I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to press OK. So what that does is we're now going to be overriding the default timer method. And if you remember what this showed in the App Inventor blocks, we're going to do two things. We're going to get two random numbers, one for the x and one for the y coordinate, and then we're going to move our sprite to those coordinates. So first off, let's create a new random object. This is how we're going to create our random numbers. And don't forget to import. So now for our x coordinate, we're going to get the next integer, and if you look at the App Inventor blocks, we're doing the canvas width, and we're going to subtract off the width of the mole sprite. So we're just going to get the game canvas, and it has a method called width, and I'm going to subtract off our mole sprite and along with its width. Now for getting the y, it's the exact same thing, so I'm just going to copy this down, change this to y, and instead of width, we're going to use the height. And all we have to do now is take our mole sprite and move it using the move to method. And we're just going to pass in our random x and our random y. And that's it. That's all we have to do with our game clock. But now what we have to do is we actually have to initialize it. So up here, I'm going to create our new game clock object. In the define method, we're going to initialize it just like we did all of our other variables. And we're going to pass in this. And last thing we want to do is we actually want to make sure we enable it. So there's a method called timer enable that takes in a boolean, and we're just going to say true. If all goes well, I should be able to run this, and we should see the mole jumping around. Okay, so as you can see, the mole is jumping around. Now if I click outside of the mole, nothing happens. But if I can click the mole, you can see how my counter is increasing now. Okay, that's it. This is the last step of the mole mash game. If you wanted to extend it, things you could do is you could create a reset button down here that will reset the mole to 10 and 10 and will reset the score label to 0. I hope these tutorials were useful for you. Our next mini-series is going to be a little bit longer. It's going to be a shooter game where you use the accelerometer to control a ship while you try to destroy a bunch of little android guys coming at you. Okay, until next time.